Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our October Wake County Beekeepers Association meeting. We have a nice room full of folks here tonight, and unlike our normal agenda, we're going to try to go ahead with our election, and we have Charles Heatherly from our nominating committee here to go ahead and walk us through that. And then after he's done, we'll get started with our presentation. So I'm going to hand it over to Charles.
Thank you. On behalf of the nominating committee, which includes Danny James, Susan Benton, and myself, we make the following recommendation as a slate of officers for next year. You'll recognize most of them because most of them are continuing, and we're grateful for that because being an officer of a club is a big responsibility, and we owe these folks a great debt of gratitude for the time and the energy that they've devoted. For President, Kim Rossi to continue. Vice President, Jim Bly. Jim, would you stand up, please? He's always standing in the back. Continuing, Secretary Gordon Geeking. Gordon is not here tonight. Where is he in?
He's in Tennessee with some family.
In Tennessee. He went a long way to escape this meeting. Treasurer, Susan Benton. And there's a caveat with Susan's nomination. A few years ago, there was a club policy adopted that officers should only serve a 3-year term. We reached out to several people that were qualified for this position, and nobody had the time or energy or the willingness to do it this time. Susan has graciously agreed to continue. And so the nominating committee makes the recommendation that we suspend that policy for the office of treasurer, only serving 3 years at this time. For program chair, Keith Buchanan. Keith, would you raise your hand? He's been our sergeant at arms for the past few years, but Keith has some really good ideas for programs next year, and I know that you'll want to come and hear them. Sergeant at arms to replace Keith is Greg Marson. I don't believe Greg is here. Greg, are you with us?
No, he's actually traveling.
Well, he's traveling too.
Yeah.
He was on the board of directors and fulfilled his term there. And continuing as past president is Ken Cobb, who will stay in that role until we have another past president. For the new position as director, we nominate Chris Hagwood. Chris, you may recall, has been chair of our mentoring committee for the past few years and has spent a lot of time with some of you new beekeepers in that role. Continuing as directors are Charlie Gall and Tom Wales. I don't see Charlie. Is Tom here? Tom, thank you for your service and your continuing service. Now, at this time, the floor is open for other nominations. So if anybody is willing to serve and would like to step forward, now's the time. Or as they say at weddings, forever hold your peace.
How do we?
Keith, are there any comments from out in the boondocks? All right, going once, going twice, going thrice. Do I hear a motion that we accept the officers as nominated along with that provision by acclamation? All in favor say aye. Thank you, Madam President. And we look forward to your regime for the next year.
Thanks for that, Charles. And I did ask on the Zoom if just to make it official, if people could raise their hand in the chat window. So if you're on the Zoom call, if you could do that for us, that would be greatly appreciated to get the election done officially. And so I'm going to turn the mic over to Jeremy.
So I'm Jeremy, your program director. I'm stepping down. This is my third and final year. So I'm not sure if I'll make it to the next two meetings or not, but I'll make sure you guys have a speaker, and then I'll be around. Obviously, I'm not just leaving the club. Just like her, I've got kids between 8 and 13, and they're into a lot of stuff, and so that's what keeps me busy. Actually, I had to drop 2 of them off tonight before I even came here. And then their mom picks them up, and that's just how it goes with kids. So I've always been, trying to get more kids into this beekeeping community, and it never occurred to me to have a younger speaker in here under 18. So this is our first one that I know we've had in at least 3 years. So I've tried to do a lot of things with the kids, and get my kids involved and get other kids involved. And we did, I think, with Bee School, you can bring one of your kids for free if you're scheduled. So this is the next generation here, and her sister may join us. It's Kennedy's a sister. Sorry, I can't remember.
I'm Kennedy.
Kennedy. Okay, Parker's the older one. Parker's out at a soccer match. So Parker and Kennedy run Double B Apiary. You've probably seen their posts. Their logo is pretty nice, and you've probably seen it on our Wake County Facebook page on our groups and stuff. So they do a lot of stuff. They do Nucs. They I've even seen you sell jelly before, I think. So I'm really excited to have some young speakers in here today. So hopefully her sister makes it, and this is a huge pumpkin. So anyways, give them a hand, and I'll turn it over to them.
So I'm Kennedy from Double B Apiary, and I run this business with my sister. So we just found out that that she might be here because she's the captain of her golf team, and her coach just informed her right before we came here that she has extra holes to play for their team to go to regionals, I think it is. So their whole team's out there trying to finish it and everything. So I'm gonna take over for now. I'm not used to being the one up here talking. I'm normally doing what my dad does and just is showing everyone what to do. My sister's better at the whole talking aspect, but I'll do my best. So me and Parker, we both go to Wake Forest High School, and we're both involved in the FFA club at our school. My sister is the vice president, and I am the sentinel. So how our business started is actually kind of a funny story. So we bought some land up in Warrenton and decided to do a family garden. Now we didn't really maintain it the best and kind of let everything overgrow a little. And then we came back from the 4th of July weekend, and we had wheelbarrows just full of produce. And we were like, what are we going to do with all of this? So we came to the conclusion that we're just going to sell it to family and friends. From there, we went to weekly produce boxes, and we were having problems with our pollination. So we were like, okay, let's try it to get a honeybee hive. And we got that. And Parker and I were just so fascinated with it. And we were just kept wanting to go and check the hive again and see what it was about. And then we would go home and we'd research more and more. And we got to the point where we tried to make a split and it failed. So then we were like, all right, let's go do some more research, try this again. We tried it again and it succeeded. It did pretty well. So from then we just kept growing and splitting and growing and splitting. So now we manage about 200 hives, and yearly we sell about 150 nukes, 100 queens. And this past year, we've sold about 3,000 pounds of honey. And then in the fall, we also grow giant pumpkins. This business has been so great for my sister and I. We've learned so much for what we can do in the future. We've learned customer service skills. We've learned stuff about how you have to definitely spend money to make money. So that was a hard one for us to learn, but it's really just been a great opportunity for us, and we're happy we can do it. Is it not? Can you go? You might have to click it twice. Okay. Okay. So we do this thing called Double B Gives Back. We give free classes to teach people about honeybees and farming. And we also donate a lot of produce to local food pantries. And we've also donated to bird sanctuaries that are local, and just also individuals that deserve it. Now, how we're able to give back so much, we sell Nucs, queens, and honey, and through the we're starting to take orders for our Nucs and packages, our pre-orders, and yeah, that's how we fund it. So now let's get started. So a big question is, what is single hive management? Single hive management is a practice in which your honeybee hive is confined to a single brood box for most of the year. However, many times throughout this year, both your brood chamber and entire hive will contain more than one single box. So why we use single brood box, the single brood box system, is we get more honey per hive. By manipulating the brood box, we can convince the bees to store their honey in honey supers, which can be stripped right off when we harvest and get the honey. It also involves less equipment and less to handle and maintain, so which leads to you not having to spend as much money. It's also better efficiency when you treat, when we treat with oxalic acid and everything. And it's easier to determine the colony during the assessments. My dad's about to demonstrate. You can just lift up the hive and check the bottom to see if there's any swarm cells and just maintain the hive. Now, January, the bees are tucked in and just starting to get out in late January. So for the single hive management, you start with a single deep brood box. And then for the standard hive management, you are preparing equipment, winter projects. You're starting about in the third week of January, you will begin checking on the colonies to make sure that they made it through the winter. And you're going to begin to stimulate the colonies by feeding with pollen patties and 1-to-1 sugar water.
So how we feed here is we just have a plug in the top of all of our single hives. We use bucket feeders with holes in it, and that's how we feed.
Yeah, and then with the pollen patties, we place these directly over the brood nest because the nest doesn't move in the winter, so they're not going to move to go get the pollen patty on one side versus the other. So you're just going to want to keep it right there. Okay, in February, the bees are waking up and they're going to start to raise some brood. So in the single hive management, you have the single brood box, and then for the standard hive management, you're going to check the queen rate, combine queenless colonies, continue to stimulate the colonies by feeding the pollen patties and sugar water. We feed with about 1 pound of pollen substitute and about 2 gallons of sugar water per colony about every 2 weeks. As soon as the maples start to bloom, be ready to add another brood box. And we also start lightly equalizing the colonies by moving capped brood frames. Okay, in March, everything starts to get going more naturally now that the flow is starting to be there. We're gonna add our second deep brood box. And the way that we organize our brood box is listed right there. I know it looks like just a bunch of letters, but they mean something. The F stands for the foundation, H stands for honey, and E stands for empty drawn comb. And then the foundation on the outside gives us as beekeepers some extra time without swarming if you're ever running behind, because the comb takes the longest in the bee's process. And then adding space gets the queen to expand the brood nest and stop her swarming instinct. In the last week of March, we pull and sell the overwintered Nucs from the hives. And doing this helps also equalize everything, so everything is about the same in strength. We also re-queen all the colonies with current year queens because when we sell the overwintered nukes, it leaves a hive queenless. So then we just put one of our queens in there. And then bringing the queens from the breeders that we work with that either have the breeder queens we want or provide our own breeder queens to give them to graft from.
Oh, that's me.
Okay. So like I said before, the maple pollen flow is present. The last week of March, we sell the overwinter nukes. We requeen all the colonies from the current years. And then we open feed dry pollen substitute. We switch from the pollen patties to the dry pollen substitute because of the hive beetles. And this is when the hive beetles are going to start to come out. And then because of that, also the dry, sorry, I'm kind of talking in circles right now. The dry pollen substitute is good for the rainy days because when they can't go out and get the nectar or pollen, they then have something right there that they can get, and they'll always be bringing something in, which will help cause heavy brood rearing, but only if you're doing that supplemental feeding. We feed with a more watered down sugar water. And then of course we equalize all the colonies. Now, one big thing that we would want for you to take away from this presentation is a colony with 4 frames of brood during the maple flow will peak in population 7 to 8 weeks. Now we try to have the population peak 2 weeks after the flow begins, because you don't want them peaking before the flow, because then they're just going to want to swarm the whole time and you'll just be fighting that. And now April, things really get going now. My dad's going to talk about this one because I can talk through it, but it's just easier if you like see it visually.
Okay, so at this part of the season, what we have is we have the original single brood box, no queen excluder, a second brood box so she can work in the entire hive. And we put those empty drawn frame in the middle. So she'll start to make a giant football sized nest in here, and it'll really start to get big. So we're to the point now where we want to get the queen and everything back down into the single box so we can get ready for the honey flow. So what we'll do is we'll pull the feeders right now. You're going to take the lids off. And what we want to do is from these frames that are up in here, they're probably still working on drawing these outside frames. The inside frames are probably full of either capped brood, eggs, larvae. And on the bottom box, the outside frames probably have stored sugar water, some pollen, and some resources. In the center is really what where the rest of the brood is. So the way we manipulate it is we take all the outside frames here that have, whether it's sugar water, stored sugar water, pollen, anything except for brood and larvae, we pull those out. We take those out and we replace them with the brood from the center in here. So all the brood goes down into that bottom box. Then what we do is we take an empty super, or we use supers, deeps for everything. And then you're going to take all the bees in here. This way you don't have to find the queen, and you just shake every frame down. So if you shake all the bees out of the top box, you know the queen's down in the bottom box, and that's how you can get through 200 hives quick without having to go find the queen in every single one. Once she's down in the bottom, you're going to take your queen excluder, put her down there. You probably want to find a 10 frame one instead of an 8 frame like we bought, but goes down in. And then you're going to replace that box that you had on top. And probably what you're going to have is resources on the outside. You're probably still going to have a couple frames of brood, larva, eggs, something of that sort in the center. And you're going to put it on top and get ready for the flow. The one thing you have to do is you have to come back and check in 7 to 10 days, because, and the way we check is we just tip the hive forward, and you can flip through the center where the eggs and the brood were. And a lot of times they like to try to pull a queen cell above this queen excluder. So it's very important to come back in 7 to 10 days and check every one of your hives and kill any queen cells they've started up here above the excluder. Once that's done, then what you have is 10 frames of brood. You have 3 to 4 more frames of brood up there. So you have a super hive going, getting ready to get big and get ready to make you some honey.
Okay. And then, so as always, you're going to want to equalize your colonies. And then depending on the year, like when the nectar flow starts, you're going to feed the first week of April to stimulate that. But make sure you know if the flow's on and you're not going to want to feed, because you're not going to want all your honey to just be sugar water. So make sure you're aware of that. And then you're going to want to add honey supers and the foundation as needed. May. Okay, now hold on. It's getting crazy out there. So what we're going to do is you're going to have the single deep brood box and check to make sure that you aren't storing pollen or nectar frames in the brood box. And if you are, you're going to want to move those above the excluder, so all your resources are in that top box.
So a hive check, you'll just pull off this top box, pull off the excluder, tip the hive back, look in the bottom, and you can see it's easy to just flip these out to the side, and you can see if they're storing pollen and nectar in here in the outside frames, you'll pull them out, shake off the bees, put them above the excluder, and move a drawn frame down in there. That's a key thing to remember. If you're using a single brood box system, you can never put foundation down in there and let them draw foundation, because that takes time, and the queen has to be able to lay in every single cell, all 10 frames, all the time. So you always want to have empty drawn comb is what's going back down in there so the queen can lay.
Okay. And then you're going to want to add honey supers as needed, and then check for swarm cells and take the necessary steps if you do see a swarm cell. And now in June, the flow is over and it's time to get the benefits. So you'll have your deep, single deep box, and you're going to pull the honey supers off and prepare for this. And we prepare for the sourwood. We equalize and pull the nukes if needed to have a 6 brood and 4 drawn comb brood box. And it is critical in this time to be feeding with 1-to-1 sugar water, because the bees have no honey, because we just took all their stores off that they had. They're not going to have any resources to eat throughout the week or whatever. So you need to be feeding at this time. But one crucial thing also is that you don't overfeed and you don't underfeed. You want just enough to maintain the numbers without like them storing excess. And then we install 1 to 2 supers with drawn or undrawn comb for the bee space. Because if you think about it, you just took all the bees into one box. So they're going to think they're going to like swarm or something. So you're going to want to put another box on top. And then if there's no natural pollen out, you're going to want to, or we feed with open pollen substitute. And remember, the hives have no honey stores at this point and can die, or the queen can stop laying within days with no feeding. We pull and extract the honey supers in the first week of June. At the end of June, beginning of July, we move the hives to the North Carolina mountains for sourwood. And we set up the mountains with the single brood box and 3 deep honey supers of drawn comb. So they have plenty of space since we can't go up there as often. In July, pretty much what we do is rinse and repeat for the sourwood honey. You're going to want to have the single deep brood box, and you're going to want to check to make sure the bees aren't storing pollen or nectar frames in the brood box. And if they are, move them above the excluder. For this, you're going to, around July 4th, if the sourwood hasn't bloomed yet, we feed with 1 to 2 gallons of sugar water, and then we cross our fingers and hope for a good sourwood flow. We check the hives around mid-July for the to see if they've grown or if they're about to swarm. In August, it's honey time again. We do the single deep brood box and we take off all of the honey supers and then we install deep honey super back on that's empty. And then remember, it is critical to be feeding them with sugar water at this time. And then if no natural pollen is coming in, open feed them with pollen substitute. But remember, they have no honey stores. And then around August 1st, we pull the sourwood honey supers. We equalize all of the hives. Then we check the mite levels before and after the treatments. We treat for the mites. And then for us, this isn't the only way that you can treat for the mites, but we have two options. We can either leave the hives in the mountains where it's cooler and treat with the Apagard, or we can bring them back home and treat with the Apivar. Now, these are just the two ones that we find are easiest when we're running it at such a big scale. So, and then the colonies are huge, and it's a good time to make some splits and get the colonies to draw comb if needed. You can feed as heavily as you need
To get them to draw comb.
to get them to draw the comb. In September, it's time to start preparing for the winter. So we want to make sure your single hive is reduced down to a single deep box and let the colonies rob out any sugar water that was stored in your honey super, just so they're getting all that they can. And then in the standard hive, you check the queens and replace underperforming queens and requeen queenless colonies. You're going to want to equalize the hives, and then you're going to check the mite levels and make sure that your treatment worked. And if not, you're going to definitely want to treat again. You don't want to be going into the winter with a high mite count. And then you feed with sugar water, and then you're going to want to use the summer bees to store the sugar water instead of using your winter bees.
That's why you feed earlier in September.
That's why you feed earlier and get them all ready for the winter. And then the goldenrod flow is underway mid to late September, but continue to feed and build strong winter bees to build the winter stores. October, they're starting to get ready to go to bed. So you have the single deep brood box, and then you're going to want to equalize the hives, replace underperforming queens, combine the weak colonies if that's necessary, feed with 1-to-1 sugar water. And our goal at the end of this month is to be done feeding. So when you lift up your box, it should weigh about 80 plus pounds because it has so much food stores ready to go into the winter. November, we have no mercy for the weak. So you're going to want to keep the single deep brood box. And then in the standard hive, you're going to want to finish feeding if necessary. And if you're feeding this late in the year, you're going to want to have a heavier sugar water, just meaning you have more sugar. So then they're getting more sugar in their hive. And then you're going to want to combine weak and failing colonies. And this is just a good rule of thumb that we learned. Take your losses in the fall. A weak hive or poor queen will just most likely not make it through the winter. So don't waste your time or resources on it. It'll just end up failing most likely. And then in December, it's bedtime for them. You have the single hive management. You're just going to overwinter it with a single deep brood box. And then in the standard hive, you're going to treat with oxalic acid for mites when it's broodless. Generally, we treat between Christmas and New Year's. And then we treat with 2 grams per box when the temperature is about 42 to 48 degrees. The bees won't be flying, but will still be in a loose cluster. so the oxalic acid can penetrate. And then, of course, you're going to be working on all of your winter projects because you found out during the summer you don't have enough frames or wood. So you're just going to get all caught up on that. And then it all starts all over again. So does anyone have any questions? Yeah.
Is this on? So you mentioned that you've got the brood in a single box, but I'm not sure if what you're saying is that you're overwintering with no stores above that brood box.
That's right. So the way the single brood box system works is you try to contain all the brood always in a single box because it's easier to find the queen. It's easier to do everything that way. But in the winter, what happens is that single box then gets filled solid with whether you leave honey in there or whether you just feed it deep. So basically, by the time the end of this month or November come around, they're going to have about a softball sized cluster of bees and brood going in the center, and everything else in this single box is just going to be full of honey or stored sugar water.
Anyone else? Susan?
Sugar do you got?
Sugar
do you
All of
got
it, right?
in you?
All of it.
We walk out of Walmart and we get so many dirty looks and stuff. They're like, what are you doing with all that sugar? Because we like go to Walmart and just like clear out their shelves because we need so much. And they're like, why are you using all this?
What, like 500 pounds a week, maybe?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay. Great job. Just, I know you were nervous, but awesome job.
Thank you.
And thanks to Dad too. Dad, what is your name, Dad?
Oh, it's Frank. Frank Bowman.
Good job.
Thank you.
Jim?
Yeah, just a quick question. I know you said you start making your splits, I think in the end of March,
Yes.
and with your own queen. So when do you start queen rearing? When do you do your grafting?
So we graft like
Well,
a
the queens that
lot.
we get that early come either from a breeder with a breeder queen that we like or that we've sent to them to graft off of. So it has to be someone from like Southern Georgia or Northern Florida for those. Ourselves, you probably start grafting in like late March,
Yeah.
early April.
Yeah, I was thinking that was early. I was just curious.
She's the only one left in the family with eyes to be able to graft. So Kennedy does the grafting.
Yeah, it's hard because I have to like really focus because I'm like, don't mess this up. Don't
you're
mess this
fine.
up.
And I actually have a couple questions. How do you do your mite checks?
So we use, what is it called, that yellow?
The mic check.
Yeah, just
with
a
the
mite
wash.
checker. You take like a handful of bees and you put
About 300.
about 300
Some alcohol and
and
shake
some
it.
alcohol, and then you put the lid on and you shake it, and it has like little holes, and then all the mites fall to the bottom of it, and you can count the mites and then count how many bees you have and then figure out like how many mites you have per bee.
Are you doing that in all 100 or so of your?
We take
Spot check.
we just like take random ones,
Okay.
like all over, because that would just take forever.
And they check throughout. You check throughout the year
Yeah.
because you
Okay.
never know.
And about how many colonies are you running up to the mountains?
This past year was the first time we've ever taken some, and I think we took about 40. We took 20 to each location.
Have you harvested that yet?
Yes.
Yes.
How'd you do?
We had better luck in Linville than we did Asheville.
Asheville was bad. And Linville, you got almost 100 pounds of hive.
Okay. And just from the boxes that you were flipping, those all appear to be plastic frames. So are you running plastic frames in all of your hive boxes?
For most of them, we found that we like the Kierco. I think it's like triple wax. They just draw them the fastest. They're just the best for us.
Okay. And lastly, are you pulling any wax? And if so, what are you doing with your wax?
You use it to re-wax the frames, right?
Oh yeah, we take like a little as we go, and
The
then
cappings, right? Just the
yeah,
cappings.
just the cappings, and then we melt that down, and then we just wax over the frames again that weren't getting drawn.
Okay, and Keith, are you seeing any questions from the Zoom?
I have one question. You kept talking about equalizing colonies throughout the whole year, several times. How do
Yes.
you manipulate the bees and the queen and bees from different hives and get them introduced? So they won't
That-
fight.
So throughout the year, it depends on what your goal is. Generally, if you can locate the queen in a hive when in the spring or throughout the year, it really doesn't matter. We shift frames of usually cap brood is the fastest way to equalize, and we shift frames with bees on them, without bees on them, and they all get along. They're not going to fight and kill each other. The only thing you would never want to do is if you had a small or failing colony, say with 1 or 2 frames of bees left on it, you would never want to take 4 or 5 frames of brood and bees and move it into that colony, because then they could kill the queen. But if you're just moving 1 or 2 hives into another brood box, they're all going to get along. It's going to be fine. But we do equalize throughout the year, because for them, they have so many colonies. You want to be able to do everything at one time. So if you can have everything at the same strength level, you don't get robbing, and you can do everything at the same time. When it's time to add supers, you add the same number of supers to every hive. When it's time to feed, you can feed the same size bucket to every hive. It's just much easier that way.
Do you use any software to keep records on individual hives?
Oh, what we do is on the top of the hives, we just take a Sharpie. We always have a Sharpie on us, and we write what the date is and what happened. And then we also use the bricks that we keep bricks on top of our hives in case a raccoon comes or something. And depending on the way it's facing, it means a different thing about the queen, whether she's mated or on her mating flight, or if it's a virgin queen, all that.
So just out of curiosity, you're in high school. How many hours outside of high school are you working on your bees?
I try to go up as much as possible. I spend most of my weekends up there. I have to balance it with my soccer games and everything, and then
More in the spring, right? Less
more
in
in the
winter.
spring and more in the summer when I can go up and I don't have school. But I think,
You try to get a lot done in the winter, right? So you don't have as
yeah,
much to
but
do.
this Friday, I think I'm going up, and I think I have that on my list to do.
Your FHA chapter at your school, are there other students that are involved with apiaries or helping you, or?
I know there's a guy who goes to a different school than us that has them, but me and Parker are the only ones in our club that have
Because one of the things that Jeremy mentioned early on is we've, as a chapter, we've been trying to promote getting younger beekeepers into the club.
Mhm.
So we would super appreciate it if you would start talking up
yeah.
and trying to get students to join us, or whatever beekeeping club is closest to them,
Yeah.
so
I
that a new generation.
Yeah.
Yeah, you seem pretty on it with it. Anyone else have any questions?
I have a comment. Very good presentation. FFA is really great. The vocational ag teacher, they made a mentor out of me, and I appreciate that. What is the long term? You interested in entomology? NC State has got a good program.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking at NC State for one of my colleges, and I know Parker is too. I think Parker wants to go into an environmental, law or something
Engineering.
like that, or engineering. I'm not quite sure what I want to do quite yet, or what I want to study, but I'm definitely looking at NC State as an option.
Go Wolfpack.
Yeah, especially when my dad swam there.
Very good. Thank you.
I have a question. Do you have a problem with hive beetles? And if you do, how do you manage that?
What do we use this?
For the hive beetles, we found we used to have a terrible problem with them. And so under a lot of our hives, we put the black fabric, like in our nuke yard where they raise queens and just individual nukes. We've taken the black landscape fabric and probably fabricked I don't know, quarter to a third of an acre with it. So that way, when the bees throw the larva out, they just hit that black plastic and dry up right away. They don't have a chance to pupate. We've also found that just a very, very strong hive can fend it off. They can kind of do themselves. And as long as you can keep it in the sun, it works a lot better. Now, if you're deep in the woods and there's a problem, you're always fighting them. And what we've recommended is if you're trying to do it the natural way, more natural, a natural solution, you can just take like water softener or pool salt and just pour it all under the base of your hive, because it makes the soil unusable for the hive beetles to pupate in. It's just so salty. Then you don't have to mow under it or worry about weeds. It almost works like Roundup. If it's something where you're okay using a chemical solution, you can use like a grub killer. You can even use termite, something that's designed for termites, because that gets down in the soil and it doesn't sit on top where the bees could land and be. It actually gets down into the soil. And that would stop the grubs from getting down in there and pupating and keeping the cycle going. Other than that, just clean out the inside of your boxes a lot, because every once in a while you'll notice if you start to get a lot of debris on your bottom board, or sometimes up in the top under your top cover on top of the frames, you can get them to, the larva will actually go inside of the hive and be able to do their full cycle inside of the hive.
Thank you.
Sure.
Are there any other questions, either from in person or on Zoom? Okay, well, again, we appreciate it. If you guys want to have a seat for a few minutes, and we're going to go ahead and finish up our business meeting. Okay, so our treasurer's report for this evening. Susan submitted this earlier today. Current balance is $18,936.34. Bank balance $18,679.08. PayPal balance is $117.26. Petty cash on hand is $140. Bank deposits, there were none since last meeting. We did receive a check for $20 from, it's a group received from Blackbaud Giving Fund on behalf of Wells Fargo Community Care Grants Program. Whew, that's a mouthful. Expenses, we had $135 for rent for this building. For October, I reimbursed it to myself for membership badge supplies and honorarium to Jennifer Kelly of $75. Our membership report, Gordon submitted, and we have current membership is 367. We have 170 new members, 178 renewing members, and our 1970 plus lifetime members. So awesome. We're growing even as late as October. Next slide. Okay, and some of you may be new and have never attended any of the North Carolina State meetings, the conference, but the spring meeting was changed, and typically it would have been held back in March, and they didn't have it. So now it is going to happen on Friday and Saturday, November 19th and 20th, up at the Hickory Conference Center. And there is now availability online to do an advanced registration, and there's the summary of speakers and vendor information is available on their website. So if you're interested, I know a few of us were at the New Bern conference in 2020, right before everything shut down, and it was a good event. A lot of very helpful presentations. So if you're interested, make sure you check out the website. And November, we're planning on having a panel discussion with some of our more experienced beekeepers for our November meeting. And then we're still looking for some feedback. A survey is going to be coming out here in the next week or so to the membership via email. And we'd like as much input as you can give us on what we're going to do for our December meeting. Typically, those of you who are older members know that December is usually a celebration of the end of year. We sort of kick back. We have a social event. Sometimes that's been a pig roast. Sometimes it's been barbecue, potluck. So in the survey that's going to come out, we're going to look for your feedback, because we're still under COVID restrictions. And so we just want to make sure that we're getting feedback from everyone, whether you're going to attend an event and how much food we should be purchasing. And hopefully we'll be able to pull it off and do it here in this location. So look for that email and survey. Okay, and number 3, worth the wait. Anyone who has been watching the local news realizes that in a couple of days, the state fair is going to start back up. And so 2021, the state fair is back. We have in the expo building an area called the Bee and Honey exhibition. And this year, I believe there's probably 5 or 6 other county chapters that are participating in the county booth display. And so if you're at the fair, please be sure to go over and check that out. There are some amazing exhibits over there. And, because of COVID restrictions, there has been a change to the North Carolina State Beekeepers Association. They're not doing the honey sales booth like they've done in the past. This year, they asked the chapters to pick a day if they could and man the booth, staff the booth, and talk about bees. And we picked 2 days. Jim Bly was kind enough to help with the setup and do the sign up for that. And so we have Sunday, October 17th and Friday, October 22nd as our dates. And we will be there selling honey straws. We had Rick Bordeaux brought us some honey sticks from Bailey Bee Supply. We bought a case of those. So we're going to go ahead and sell those for 25 cents a stick, and we'll see what happens. And if you've signed up already, please be sure things are a little bit different this year with the fair. And so, and also with the state association, they're not reimbursing anyone for tickets. And so if you need tickets if you're manning the booths or helping out at any of the other booths, just a reminder that the discount tickets are on sale, I think through tomorrow, I think it is. And you can get those either online at one of the state fair booths, or Circle K gas stations have those discounted tickets. Yes. Okay, and Jim is reminding us that there's still, if you haven't signed up and you still want to sign up on the Facebook, on our Facebook page, we have the link to those signups. So please be sure to check that out. Okay, and just a reminder too that I think Adolphus and the other booth still is looking for a couple folks to help them out. I think that as time has gone on, some people have backed out. So please check out their signups as well. Okay, and is that? Okay, and so there's our last two meetings of the year, November 9th and December 14th. And one of the things that we are starting to work on is Keith Buchanan is going to also, he's been working on the bee schools. And so this coming year, what we're hoping to do is to concentrate on beginner beekeepers and intermediate and advanced beekeeping in a variety of different ways. And so he has already been in front of the executive committee and pitched some stuff. And so if that's something that you would like to help out with, be sure to get in touch with Keith. We need to get rocking and rolling on this and get the curriculum going soon so that we can start promoting it as well. And I think, is there anything else from the floor at the moment? Okay, Susan's going to take over and do drawing.
Ask if everybody goes.
Did everyone get a door prize ticket? We have a few things up here that Kennedy and her dad brought.
Including this big pumpkin. Should we give away the pumpkin first? I see a little girl. Would you like to come and draw the winning ticket? Okay, come on up. Reach into my mask box and pick out a good one. Right. Do you want to read it? I'm going to read the last four numbers. 8757. 8757. All right, you've won a pumpkin. Congratulations. All right, next we have this beautiful jar of honey with comb. And would you draw a ticket for me? Okay. You want to read the numbers? Read the last four ones.
So these
Uh-huh.
8736.
8736. Oh, right there. Congratulations. Very good. She does. All right, we got one more. You want to draw one more lucky ticket? Okay, you want to read it?
8755.
8755. Oh, Tom's got it. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll just put them in the box. Well, that was fun. Thank you for donating our door prizes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, bring them up. It's not over yet. Bee Culture magazines. We'll just draw. I'll just draw a few tickets. We'll draw one for each magazine. So, well, I put the tickets back in there. 8757. That was you. Okay. Well, I was not thinking. Did we already have 8755? Okay. That's you. Yeah. 8735. Could that be me? Don't think so. All right, I'll draw another one. 8743. You got them, okay. 8736. Okay. 8758. Right. Christmas issue. Thank you, Jim, for bringing these. 8738. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. 8749. 8749. All right. Go for it, Kim. 8745. Right here.
8754.
54. Excellent.
Eight, 734.
Is that Keith?
And the last one.
Last one. 8742. Oh, excellent.
Okay, great job, everyone. Thanks for coming out tonight. We had a lot more people than last meeting, so I appreciate get the word out. Make sure that you promote it for our next November meeting. That's that's always a good session with our expert panel. Asking questions, and it stimulates a lot of thought with the new beekeepers. So, Jeremy, have you picked your experts yet? Or is there another topic? Okay. All right. Well, again, I appreciate everyone coming out, and if you're able to, if you can help getting the chairs back in place, we have to be out of here by 9 o'clock. So if you can grab your chair and pull it over to the side, that would be appreciated. Thanks, everyone. Good night.